Hello, in this video I wanted to show you how MyOpenMath could be used in a chemistry course in order to make digital online data reports for students to use. Let's go ahead and start this assignment. This is an introductory lab where students have to measure an object using a ruler to calculate its volume by dimensions, and they also have to measure its volume by the displacement method in water. Then they use balances in order to figure out the density of their object and compare that to the density of aluminum shot, which they also measure in order to rationalize whether their bar could be made out of aluminum or not. So on this page is where they're going to enter in their data. We have a lot of different metal bars for them to pick from. So they have to first select the bar. Some of our metal objects are cylinders, some of our metal bars are rectangular, some have square ends. And so after the student identifies their unknown ID, then the student has to specify the shape and color of that. Then they enter in the side lengths. So let's say the student measures with the ruler and then types in some numbers. We'll go ahead and type in some numbers. Okay, so then there can be immediate feedback that lets the student know that they didn't measure their object correctly. And one of the common errors is that students are not aligning the ruler against the edge of their object. So then the student remeasures their object and types in other values. And now they're a little bit closer to the actual dimensions of their object. But they haven't recorded to the correct precision. So there's a different feedback message for that. And eventually the student remeasures and types in correct values. It will accept anything within a certain range of what's programmed in as the correct answer. So the computer knows by looking up their unknown's ID numbers what the correct dimensions of the object are. Then for the volume, the computer knows the dimensions of that object, and so the student has to take the measurements that they entered and multiply them together. And they also have to follow significant figure rules. And then you can do similar things for measuring the volume. And so once again, there can be feedback messages to let the student know how to read the graduated cylinder, how to figure out what the estimated digit is, and type in values correctly. Then all calculated values are based on the data that they enter. We'll skip over some free response questions for now. You can also make some hover over messages that let students know like what you want for a particular question. And if you don't, we'll skip over some things for now. The computer also knows the mass of each object, so the students have to be really close to the mass. If they type in other things that like don't have the correct digits, then they can get feedback messages reminding them of how to measure. You can also, for calculated values, make students have to type in the units. So like if they don't type in the units, there's a message that says missing units, and then they have to type in the units. And it does accept equivalent units. So like I put in grams per milliliter, but it would also accept grams per centimeter cubed. And so they just continue throughout the whole lab. And it's great, like if they made a typo or something, they can go back and fix it. And most importantly, students can learn from their mistakes. For this question, they are allowed to use any mass of aluminum shot. So on the back end for the calculation, it's predicting what the volume of aluminum shot should be based on the mass they enter and the initial volume that's in their graduated cylinder. So that way it knows where the final volume of their aluminum shot should be. So overall, this is a really fantastic way for students to get immediate feedback on a lab that they're doing face to face. And I hope you found this video very informative. When it gets time to grade the assignments, you grade by question. So for all those free response questions that I showed you earlier, you'll see them on this view and you'll see all students' response to the same question at once. And I have put in instructor notes so that it references what values the student inputted, what the value should be, so that if the student didn't write that in their response, I still know what they should have gotten. And so this instructor note is only visible to me in the grading view, and it does update the numerical values accordingly, depending on the student's unknown ID number.